Welcome to DIY Guitar Making episode number 47. This is a continuation of the previous episode on installing frets over the body, which is an excerpt from the online guitar building school course, Building an OM Acoustic. To learn more about this course, visit ericschaferguitars.com. Here's a simple trick for reducing chip out on the fretboard surface when fretting. Good technique with the fretting hammer is the best way to prevent chip out, but it also helps to give a very slight bevel to the top of the fret slots with a triangular needle file. Chip out happens when you are hammering one side of the fret in and the other end pops back out of the slot. As the other end exits the slot, it snags on the edge of the slot and breaks off a chunk of wood. Also, if you need to remove a fret for any reason now or later in the guitar's life, then you are likely to get chip out if the slots are not beveled slightly. Chip out is especially common on ebony. The bevels I'm making are very slight, almost imperceptible to the eye. The ideal fretting hammer has a head loaded with shot so as to reduce recoil. You may know this as a dead blow hammer. The hammer's face should be brass or plastic so as not to mar the fret tops. A regular carpenter's hammer will not do here. Fretting hammers can be purchased at luthier suppliers. So here's the hammer technique. I steady the fret with a finger in the middle, then I hammer the ends in, leaving a hump in the middle. Now I work my way from the ends towards the middle with sharp strokes. Once I've reached the middle, I finish up by hammering along the entire length of the fret to make sure it is well seated. A rifle sighting rest, which is essentially a bag filled with shot, is centered beneath the fret to reduce recoil. A bag of rice works just as well. Notice how I move the rest so that it remains centered beneath the fret I am working as I make my way up the neck. This fretting technique will work out to about the 16th fret because that is where the neck block ends. Beyond that, out on the fretboard tongue, there is nothing to support the blows of the hammer. Without some kind of support, the frets won't seat. The simplest and most cost-effective way to hammer frets down the tongue is to take a block of wood and hold it in place beneath the fretboard tongue, applying pressure upwards with your hand through the sound hole while you wrap your thumb out of the sound hole to hold the fret in position. In this somewhat awkward position, you can now hammer the fret in with the other hand. This really takes practice to get down, and this is no longer the way that I handle these frets. I'll admit I was a bit rusty attempting it for the video, and you can see how the fret end pops right back out. That's because I wasn't giving enough upward pressure with the hand in the sound hole. I will have to press that fret in later and glue it. The foolproof way of handling these frets is with a tool devised by Taylor Guitars, called the fret buck. The fret buck rests on the shoulders of the upper bout with a lever in the sound hole that comes up and holds pressure against the fretboard tongue from underneath. StewMac sells this tool, but the obvious downside is the expense. If you can afford it, it's worth the cost. Once all the frets are hammered in, you can check your work with straight edges. The idea is to rest a straight edge on 3 frets and see if it rocks. If the straight edge rocks, then the fret in the middle is tall. Make sure the straight edge is perpendicular to the fretboard radius, otherwise the straight edge will rock no matter how good your fretwork is. I am using a StewMac tool called the fret rocker, which functions effectively as 4 straight edges in one, so you can use different sides of the tool to span just 3 frets in different areas of the fretboard. I can also check my work with a digital caliper. The StewMac caliper has a relief cut into the bottom for checking the height of fret tops. I zero out the caliper with the depth gauge bottomed out against my workbench. When I check the fret tops, I pay extra attention to the fret ends. A difference of 1/1000th of an inch is negligible to me. I like to check the frets with both the fret rocker and the caliper because they both tell me different things. The fret rocker tells me about the fret heights in relation to the adjacent fret tops, and the caliper tells me about the height of the fret tops in relation to the fretboard. Now let's talk about gluing the frets in. Many builders don't use any glue at all. For me, glue is a necessity. Not only does glue fill the empty spaces around the fret tang, promoting better transmission of sound, glue keeps the fret ends from coming up later due to wood movement. However, if you choose not to use glue, then your work here is done. I'm going to use CA glue, but note that you could also use Titebond or hide glue. Of course, the Titebond or hide glue would have to be applied before hammering the frets in. Different glues have different pros and cons. Many believe hide glue to be superior in the context of acoustics. The CA glue that I use is water thin, so I can simply drop a bead onto the fret tang exposed at the edges of the fretboard, and the glue will wick down into and along the fret slot. Here is an easy to make call for clamping the fret ends down before applying CA glue. I have a reject fretboard and I've epoxied 2 brass rods to the edges. I can clamp this in place so that any lifting fret ends will be pressed in. Of course, you don't need a leftover fretboard for this. You can simply cut a piece of scrap to the size and taper of your fretboard and attach the brass rods. It is important to use a soft metal like brass rather than, say, stainless steel, so the call doesn't mar the frets. It is real quick and easy to clamp and glue all the frets this way. However, if just one fret end won't seat all the way, then all the other fret ends on that side can be affected, which there are a number of reasons why a fret end won't seat all the way. For example, if the slot is too shallow, or a chip out is caught between the bottom of the fret crown and the fretboard, or the fret tang is kinked. Nowadays, I prefer to take a much slower approach to gluing the fret ends in, which involves clamping and gluing each fret individually. The results are worth the extra time. To clamp and glue the frets individually, I use a StewMac tool called the Jaws 2 fret press. Now I want to stop and make an important note here. I mentioned in the intro that I was going to show you 2 techniques for installing the frets, hammering and pressing. This is the pressing technique. You can forego the hammer altogether and simply press and glue the frets in like I'm about to show here. The only reason I hammer the frets in first is because, for me, the fret press is a little clunky to use unless the frets are already seated. This is just a workflow that I've really latched onto because for me it delivers great results when I use both a hammer and a fret press. The point is, some people hammer the frets in, some people press the frets in. I use both, but you don't have to. If you are new to fretting, pick one method and learn it. If you are looking to improve your fretting, I encourage you to try this blended approach. I'm using the 12-inch fret press caul to match my 12-inch fretboard radius. Before I start, I coat the caul in paste wax, just in case I accidentally get some CA glue on the caul. Now I'm going to clamp and glue every single fret, even if the fret ends don't appear to need clamping. I like to do this for peace of mind. You could simply clamp the few frets that have lifting fret ends, and for the frets that are seated well, just run the CA glue down the fret tang without the fret press in place. This would save time. Personally, I like to be meticulous here, and time is not a concern, so I use the fret press on every single fret. For more videos like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel here. But remember, not every episode of DIY guitar making is a video. I like to write too, so some episodes are written articles. For a full archive of episodes, go to my website, ericschaferguitars.com. Click the DIY guitar making tab and you will find page after page of detailed guitar making tips. You can also subscribe to the email list to receive episodes in your inbox as they come out. Just enter your name and email and click Sign Up Now. It's free. While you're there, you can also click the Online Guitar Building School tab and check out the online course, Building an OM Acoustic, with more than 60 detailed instructional videos, discounts to luthier suppliers, and access to myself and a community of builders in the members forum. Finally, if you go to the Hands-On Guitar Building School tab, you can check availability and register for an intensive hands-on workshop with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania. That's all for now. See you later.